All systems are go.
Roger that, Control. We will go for console launch.
Roger that, VCS. Power supply is plugged in. Cartridge port is open.
VCS is now at full distribution and great sales anticipated ahead. Control, we have a problem. There's a dip in sales. In television and ColecoVision, catching up fast. We can't keep up with them. We're losing them. We're losing them.
The Atari VCS video game console, past its prime. Atarians, we can rebuild it. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first personal arcade machine. The 5200 will be that machine. Better than the VCS. Better graphics, faster processor, stronger arcade game library. Welcome, listeners, to our third episode. The Atari 5200 is such an awesome console that it needs 3 hosts to discuss its virtues. So Bob and I would like to welcome the podcast's new host, Glen.
Thank you very much for allowing me to join you guys on the 5200 podcast. I appreciate it, and I look forward to many, many more in the future.
We're happy to have you.
We're going to keep you busy tinkering and making new things for us and everything else. So, yeah, we'll put you to work right away.
Yes,
that's why I'm Rudy Wells.
That's
there
right.
You go.
So we're happy to have you. So our core team is now complete for the 5200 Bionic Adventures. Bob is Steve Austin. I'm Oscar Goldman, and Glenn is Dr. Rudy Wells. And you don't need a level 6 OSI clearance to listen to the show. The 5200 podcast trifecta is now complete. We will still have as many guests as possible on upcoming episodes. And speaking about guests, he's the master of adapters, the king of controllers, the author of Wired Up Retro YouTube channel, Steve Averitt. Come on down. You're the next guest host on the Atari 5200 podcast.
Woo! Hey, here I am. Wait. Does that mean I'm the Bionic Woman? What exactly is going on here? Okay, well, anyway.
It could be worse. You could be Sasquatch.
Oh, yeah, there you go. See, I'm not a very hairy person, but I'm sure I could act just like Sasquatch if you need.
We can always find a wig somewhere.
I was going to say we have a suit somewhere for you to put on. It'll be great.
Thanks, guys. Well, it's great to be here. I'm really, really honored to be on the show again.
Oh, you did such a great, fantastic job on the first episode. We had to have you back.
Well, I had an awful lot of fun. It was definitely a good time.
Sure. Now, Steve, as we've been keeping up with your YouTube channel, maybe you could give us a little bit of news on what's been happening since the last time you were on the show.
Yeah, back in November, I had a episode of Wired Up Retro on YouTube, which did have an awful lot to do with Atari game systems, including the 5200. I had, along with an Atari Age member, Kayvon Sidhu, come up with or devised a way to set up adapters connected together, some of which are actually wireless adapters, to get a PlayStation 3, a PlayStation 4, a Wii, and a Wii U controller working on these very old systems. An old hardware like 2600, 7800, and then with an additional adapter, the Master Play interface clone for the 5200, it works. So, it was pretty new discovery, and a lot of people were very intrigued by it. Certainly, you have to buy quite a few pieces of equipment in order to get it all linked together in a daisy chain to get it working, but it does work, and with very little lag, little to no lag is what I say. So works pretty well, and I'm excited about that. And using these PlayStation and Wii controllers totally wirelessly on these very old game systems is something that might interest especially the younger generation, because they're used to hanging on to those controllers and not so used to joysticks. So, hopefully we can get some people on board with the 5200 if they, feel like they want to use their very familiar controllers from the past decade, as opposed to 40-year-old controllers.
Sure.
Well, the other good thing is you can replay older games with these new controllers, and it gives a different feel to them. So it kind of makes them new again.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then my most recent episode, which I just got up about 2 days ago, actually, no, it was yesterday morning, was my Missile Command episode of Wired Up Retro, where I did feature the 5200 trak-ball and talked a bit about that, kind of reviewing it and comparing it to a variety of other trak-balls. So I've been keeping myself pretty busy with the 5200 lately.
It's a great little machine. It's, this was, we'll beat this dead horse a little bit later on, but yeah, I mean, this was definitely, this was the machine. Sorry, I'm still recovering. So, I'm slightly jet lagged, so I'm still putting myself together here.
Welcome aboard.
I actually almost had one of those trackballs once, but it ended up in Canada.
Oh, not that again. Well, I will update the listeners. If you remember in episode 2, when I won the trackball that we were both bidding on, I had said
but
that...
we didn't know that at the time. We totally did not know we were bidding against each other on this.
No, of course not. Of course not. Otherwise, I would never have gone against one of my team here.
Actually, I probably would have let you still have it because I know how much you like the 5200, but we probably could have got it cheaper. You got a good deal on it, but literally, it's like one of those comedy shows. He's bidding. I'm like, really? I go up. He goes, really? He goes up. And we just made the guy more money. That's all we did.
Well, I guess he won in the end.
He definitely. Well, actually, you did too because it was a good. It was a controller in very good condition. It was actually almost brand new, wasn't it? The box was amazing on it too.
The box was in really good condition. It was used. It did have a few scuffs here and there. I think I may have to take it apart in the future when I can get some assistance from Dr. Rudy Wells to open it up and give it a proper cleaning.
Of course, I'll make sure it comes back in perfect condition.
Oh, no problem. I'll send it to you right away.
Yeah.
Steve, I wanted to ask you. I just recently got into... Now, I'm not trying to get off topic, but this is still on topic. I recently got into Raspberry Pi and RetroPie, and for that, I picked up a couple of Wii U controllers. And as you know, the Wii U controllers have 2 analog sticks. Now, when you're able to wirelessly connect them to an old console, let's say like the 5200, and being that there are a lot of games on the 5200 that require analog control, are you able to use the analog sticks on the Wii U controller as an analog controller, or is it still digital?
Well, unfortunately, it's digital, and that has to do with the Master Play interface clone, which is made by Atari guy 1021 at Atari Age, and also he's an eBay guy as well.
Yes.
His adapter, when you plug in to the Genesis or 2600 9-pin port, that's basically a digital controller that's recognized, not an analog. So, just digital. So, I mean, it's going to work on games, even like Centipede, but if you're trying to play Missile Command or Breakout, it's a no-go on that.
Okay, but at least we're getting there step by step.
Yeah, definitely. It's great for Dig Dug, Pac-Man, those kind of games. Moon Patrol, both buttons work. It's pretty sweet. It really is.
Well, it looks fantastic. So, Bob, what have you been up to?
As you can tell by the quality of recording, I finally have my house back to normal. So now I can play with my 5200 again. In fact, I actually have it plugged in right now, playing Missile Command as you guys were speaking. So my ADHD had just kicked in. But no, anyways, I also, to my ever gracious co-host, David, I have a 4-port motherboard that accepts the VCS adapter. So I'm currently trilling eBay to find a 5200 that does not have, that's kind of basically not working or for parts. So I can use that as a shell to build, my little super system around it. And then let's see. So if anybody has a 5200, it's a great case, but doesn't work. I know somebody who wants it. As I said, I want a pretty one. So, and also thanks to Glenn and his review, I decided to pull the trigger on getting an Atari Flashback Portable. It was
very good choice.
Oh, it's so weird to turn that thing on and you hear the hum just like you would like a CRT screen. It was like, what's going on here? This is great. It's a mini 2600, and the games are spot on accurate. I almost want to think that there is a tiny. It's not. I don't think it's emulation. Is it emulation?
No, it is emulation, but they've slowly been improving it as they've been going.
Okay.
The Flashback 7 and the Portable have gotten pretty good at it. And again, the 2600 was, it's amazing what it's doing with it today, but it's still very simplistic. So the ARM architecture they have in there is more than capable of doing it. And they've gotten pretty good with their version of the emulator.
Yeah, because I was playing away with Yours Revenge on the plane, and I was like, I was in the back of the plane. I wasn't flying. I was in the back of the plane. I was going to work, and it was great because I cracked this thing out, and I could see like three people like looking between the seats, and it's like, oh man, he's got that's. And somebody tapped on my shoulder. Is that a 2600? I was like, kinda. It's a Atari Flashback, and it's like, oh, I gotta pick me up one of those. I was like, well, try Amazon. I think you're going to be on eBay, and you might get scalped getting it, but it's a great little machine. I let him play it. The guy was very enamored by it. So anyways, yeah, and in other news, my daughter is now listening to the Atari 5200 podcast. And basically because I have no idea how this thing is working, but my laptop it's very close to dying, but it's working tonight, as you can hear. And we decided to get my daughter an iPad so she could do all of her homework on it and everything with using the school's apps and everything, and it's working out great. And one of the things she wanted to do is she was like, "Can I get something else on here?" And I was like, "Yeah, how about Papa's podcast?" And she was like, "Oh, that'd be great." So she actually actively listens to the Atari 5200 podcast. So we have another customer well satisfied.
Woo-hoo.
Oh,
Yeah.
Very intelligent girl.
Very much so.
Very much.
Does she ask you who the other buffoon is on the show with you?
No, she just oh, these are Papa's friends. And it was like, all right, yeah, absolutely. So that's basically all I have going, and a few other things, but let's hear from Glenn. Glenn, what's going on with you right now?
Man, I got to tell you, I'm not sleeping much recently. Between doing my Glenn's Retro Show YouTube channel, trying to keep that, at least do 1 or 2 videos a week. I mean, people don't, I think, realize how much time, even a short video, how much time actually goes into creating one. It really is, man. I see some people do some spectacular effects and soundtracks. I'm nowhere near that, but that takes up a lot of my time just to come up with a topic and get that going. And in between working, if you probably seen on my channel or on Facebook, I post so much on it. I've been doing a lot with the Retro Pi Zero. I have the first Best Fun Pac-Man and Space Invaders. They're being converted to a Retro Pi systems. They're actually almost done now. I got almost all the parts in, and that's the first time that the Pi Zero has been put into these two guys. And it's been a challenge because they're so small. And in addition to that, I've also been doing the Dream Gear 201 and 301 and making them into the same thing. And there's been a lot of challenges with the screens and fitting everything in. But as far as I know, this is the first for all 4 of these to get a Retro Pi put in there. So that's been taking up a lot of my time. And then, as David knows, we're all kind of, I'm not a recovering gameaholic. I'm still full-fledged holic. And I've been buying up huge supplies of the Coleco tabletops for collecting. And when I get ones that are really in bad shape, I plan for them to convert them also into some type of Raspberry Pi system. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with them yet. I want to do something a little different. But, yeah, so that's been taking up most of my time, get a lot of soldering burns on the fingers, and it feels great.
Yes.
The last thing I've been working on is, again, talking about controllers, about the 5200 and other items. I've been doing a lot of research into that, and I've been looking to a lot of different encoders and joysticks and analog and digital for maybe a possible project with the 5200 with some type of analog control. Very early stages in that. But for right now, I have enough on my plate. What's going on over there, David, now? What are we going to do with next?
Well, just to get back to Collectaholics Anonymous, Some might know that I'm Glen's sponsor. I tried to
doing a bad job.
Yeah, well,
I was going to say you're doing a horrible job.
Yep. Yep, the 12-step program is not working for either of us, apparently. So what's new with me? Well, thanks to Glen, he gifted me with an awesome Atari Flashback Portable. Thank you so much, Glen.
You're very welcome.
And some might know I've been stocking up on Wico 5200 command controllers, like they're going out of style.
How is that going? I heard about that.
Yeah, well, I think I've got about 6 of them now. I think it's enough.
Jeez. Oh, yeah.
Now, some of them need work, so they're like for parts. But I have at least 2 of them that are in really good shape. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Shoot, I forgot. I also bought the IBM version.
Oh,
yeah.
I saw that.
Right.
Yeah, I
The
bought
PC?
that. Yeah, I bought that one. That one's brand new, mint in the box.
Oh, I was going to pull the trigger on that. I was like, oh, I can't swing it right now. I got too many other things going on.
Are we the only 3 people on eBay bidding on stuff?
No,
The only 3.
well, let's keep it as the only 3 because the prices are expensive enough.
Yeah, if I remember right, it was going for like $100, and I was like, oh, and then who was it? Was it Atari off of Atari Age Forums makes a converter that you can plug the IBM into the
Bohoki.
5200.
Yeah. It's Bohoki.
Bohoki. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, I was thinking about getting that, and I'm glad it went to a great home, though.
Well, don't worry, Bob. The other one is still available from when I last checked.
Oh, heck, let's get one.
Well, it's about $99, I think. So I actually emailed the guy, and I said, well, the first one cost me like about $99. Would you see it possible if you could give me a little bit better price on the second one? And he basically replied, well, actually, these are brand new and hard to find. I should actually be charging more.
Oh, my God.
So
I love eBay.
Yeah. So it's like,
I got
come on,
mine
give me a
for
break,
$20.
buddy. I just dropped $100 on something that was like made 30 years ago. I'm sure there's like 5 guys in the universe looking for it. And I just bought one from you. You think you could give me a little bit of a deal on the second? Oh well.
There's 5 guys and 4 of them are right here.
Okay.
That's exactly.
Well, I got mine off eBay for $20, but it was untested and it wasn't with a box.
Yeah.
And I just took a chance and got it home, and it works perfect. So
Well,
I use it with Bohoki's adapter, and it works just like the original Wico 5200 one controller.
Yep.
Great.
Sometimes do luck out. They say untested, and sometimes they're saying that because it is broken and they know it. Other times they really have no idea, and you luck out. It's a hit and miss, but sometimes you can win it.
Yeah, it's worth a try if you see it.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about it, or what people should know, if you buy the IBM version, it's got a 15-pin cable, and it does plug in to Bohoki's PC to 5200 adapter, which you will need to use it on the original Atari 5200 hardware. But as you know, it's really hard to get these things new. Now, just to let you know, just recently on eBay, 2 brand new Atari Wico Atari 5200 command controllers sold for somewhere between $120 to $100 brand new. Just recently.
Wow.
That was 2 controllers for $120.
No. There were 2 different auctions.
Oh, okay.
2 different auctions by the same guy. I think the first time he tried at $120. I did think it sold, but then his price went down to $110, and then I think then his price went down to $100, and then that one sold. But they were brand new.
Wow.
Yeah, but I was tapped out. I couldn't jump on it.
No, I hear you. I'm actually trying to look that up right now as we speak.
Well, as you hunt for more eBay stuff, I'll continue on what's new. So,
all right, keep going. Let me.
Okay.
I'll take a quick look here.
Sure. So I want to thank Frank Zipfel for sending me 2 Wico 5200 command controllers and a keypad to test. He had bought a 5200 lot and was not able to test them at the time, but he trusted me enough to actually send them from the US of A to Canada. And he paid the shipping. I paid nothing up front. I ended up buying 2 of the controllers and sending him back the keypad. The keypad didn't work, but he thought he could fix it. So the thing is, the fact that somebody in the community would send me his stuff for basically for free. He paid the shipping to see if I needed it, to see if I could use it, to see if I wanted to buy it, and trusting me to send it back to him. All I got to say is the retro hobby sure allows you to meet some great people, current company included.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I mean, once in a while you get one bad apple, but overall, everyone's extremely helpful. And I've seen that before, too. Someone had just sent me one of these Pac-Man Coleco tabletops. He just sent it to me. I said, "Me pay you something." He says, "Nope, just take it." And that was really nice. And you get that a lot. People really want people, if they need something and they can use it, they give it to you. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but some people are really nice that way.
Yes, it's nice to see.
It's great.
Yeah, I've met a lot of good people through the hobby over the years. Just good quality people. 9 out of 10. That's what I'm saying. 9 people out of 10.
Oh, that's life right there. I mean, 10
right.
You always got one bad apple in the bunch, but that's all right.
So basically that means right now there's the 4 of us. When that 10th person shows up, don't open the door.
That's
exactly.
right.
Okay. Now, I've always been interested in picking up Tempest 2000, as I'm a fan of the original arcade game, but I never had an Atari Jaguar. Then I saw on Atari Age and picked up a copy of Rebooteroids. And Rebooteroids is sort of like an Asteroids, but made in the same flair as Tempest 2000. So I had to pick it up, and I did. Only me. I buy a game for the Jaguar, and I have no Jaguar. This is my sickness. Anyway, so I was looking, when I wanted to get a Jaguar, I was looking, man, are these things expensive? Unbelievable. $200 for loose Jaguars. They're not even looking that they're that good condition. But anyway, thankfully, I had a little bit of restraint, and I decided to take a look at B&C Computer Visions just for the heck of it to see if they had any. And actually, thankfully, they did. I was able to pick up a nice boxed edition at B&C Computer Visions for $200 complete. In addition, I also ordered 2 Atari Jaguar modded controllers with a spinner from Nicholas Persin. And I'm waiting for those to show up, so I don't actually have them yet. But some days ago, I was talking on Skype with Glenn, and you remember me showing you the box.
Oh, it was, you know what? I have not seen a box in that good a condition in a long time. The Jaguar boxes are famous and infamous. You just look at it, and they start smearing and getting marks on them. Mine is in horrible shape. That box looks fantastic.
And that's why the cellophane is not going to be removed.
So I have a question. When are you getting the Jaguar CD? Because that should be up next, I'm figuring, right?
Oof.
Well, I was actually telling about that. I got the Jaguar CD, and in all honesty, there's not many games on it that you must have it, but the reason I'm saying that is... Oh,
I know. I have
There's
one.
a gentleman on Atari Age, it's called Retro HQ, who currently makes an SD card for the Atari Lynx, and I have that, and it's fantastic.
Oh, cool.
He's currently working on an Atari Jaguar SD card to replace the Skunk board, which is really not available anymore. But his version of the Jaguar SD cartridge will support CD ISOs. So you'll be able to put an ISO right on the card, and you won't need the Jaguar CD. And I tell you, I got one now. They're a very fragile creature. I have it because I'm a nutcase. I love the Jaguar, and I love Atari. If Atari sells me poop, I'm going to buy it because I love Atari. But the CD, there's only, I think, 20,000 made worldwide. So already they're rare as anything. And they're very delicate, and the lasers tend to go. So just wait maybe another 6 months, 8 months, and Retro HQ will have a cartridge that will play the ROMs, obviously, and as well as the CD-ROMs as well.
I've heard some of the Atari ST games have been revamped so they can play using that particular SD.
That's correct. And if you actually go on Glenn's Retro Show, I have a tutorial on actually how to do that. It's not difficult at all, and they're pretty good. They're fun. I mean, the ST was, not as advanced as the Jaguar, but there's more games you can play.
Yeah, like Atari Star Wars Arcade, right?
Yes. It's a very good port.
Yeah.
Well, Glenn, first thing, for your comments that you just made, I would probably call you more of an extreme collector. And that poop that you were talking about, I don't know, but for some reason I have a memory. Didn't somebody long ago said at Atari that we could put poop into a cartridge and still sell it?
That might have been something that's been said.
Yes.
And there was a time, honestly, in an era where they could. It was bad. They still would have sold hundreds of thousands of them. So it's not a wrong statement.
Yeah. Okay.
That wasn't a Tramiel that said that, was it?
No, I don't think so. That was before his time.
Okay.
I was going to say, on the 2600, they definitely did that quite a few times. It was... I always remember the speech that Homer Simpson gives talking about designer jeans, and the line that he says at the very end of his rant. It's like, these were people who saw an oversaturated market and said, "Me too."
Well, hold on a second. We're getting a really weird static. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you hear it? You guys hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Bizarre.
Quite,
and now it's got
quite static.
Okay, it's gone. Oh, there it is.
You know
That's
what
weird.
it is? It's those Intellivision and ColecoVision guys. They just can't give up. They know we're the better system, but they just gotta keep interfering. This has gotta stop.
It really is.
This has gotta stop, guys.
Actually, it might be my fault. I have a lot of Coleco tabletops behind me.
oh, that'll do it.
You know what those are? That's a fifth column. They've entered your workspace to interfere with this podcast. Another work in progress is a game called Robo for the 5200, and it's being worked on by Sebastian M. Kotek. You can actually see some of the screenshots. I think he posted on Atari Age on Facebook, and it really looks very interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, I recently communicated with Ed Kelly, and I was saying, you know, all these other consoles, they've all received that Aladdin treatment. What about the 5200? So this is what he said. Absolutely, the Super 52 will be our next focus after we finish digesting the backlog of Coleco work. I want to put a self-centering analog joystick in the center of one of our sloped aluminum cases with a pair of fire buttons on each side, the membrane keypad directly below, and the start, pause, reset buttons above. I have a lead on a potentiometer-driven joystick from the industrial controls business that will be a snap to build if it will work as a game controller. If we have to use an optical stick, it will require a logic board and be slower getting into production. But it looks like we have a few viable pathways to the Aladdin 5200 controller. Very good. I'll look forward to that.
I'm already looking forward to that.
Yeah, it sounds like a great thing to me.
And a brand new YouTube channel called RetroTech just started. It's by Kevin Mayo, and go ahead and check it out. He speaks about the mighty 5200, and he loves the console. And any friend of the 5200 is a friend of the Atari 5200 podcast.
This is Shinto from the Atari Jaguar Game by Game podcast. If you like video games with keypads on the controllers, and heck, who doesn't, then check out my show. And ColecoVisions and Intellivisionaries, but definitely the Atari 5200 podcast. Which you have. Good for you. Now back to the hosts of the Atari 5200 podcast, David and Captain Bob, who are able to store their keypad overlays on the back of the game cartridges. I'm kind of jealous.
As far as, addenda and errata, do we have anything? Not to my knowledge, at least on my end. Basically, I think what was happening was we've gotten a few emails. We've only gotten 3 emails for the contest. So people, please put in your email for the contest. Tell us why the 5200 was the best. We'll pick the best one, and we'll continue on with the contest. But but as far as any errors in our research or anything else like that, I think we're playing it pretty close to the mark. And if anything does pop up, please let us know. The whole idea is to kind of archive this for all time and actually have an accurate and an accurate record of the 5200, of the games, of the development of it, and having it in our homes and everything. So yeah, if you do see something or hear something, please let us know.
Well, I'm going to say, what I'll say right here is, in our last podcast, I was talking about Star Castle being a homebrew, and I'm not perfect. I get corrected once in a while, and our good friend Bill Kendrick had mentioned that Star Castle wasn't actually made by a hobbyist. It was actually programmed by was it David Scott Williamson, if I'm not mistaken? He's been doing games back when the Atari Tengen era. So he's been a programmer for a long time, and he programmed Road Blasters for the Atari Lynx. So I do apologize for that little foobar I did in the last episode. But Star Castle still is a fantastic port on the 2600. It's one of my favorites. But kudos more to Scott Williamson for that, because I should have given him kudos back in the last episode. So I apologize, everyone.
Well,
you were forgiven.
I appreciate that.
I'm pretty sure that's a pretty just minor infraction, so we're going to let it go.
I appreciate that.
Well, don't worry. When I start to discuss now some of these videos on YouTube,
oh boy,
here we go. Trust me, what you did, Glenn, is very, very minor.
This is an arcade game. This is the new Atari Super System. Arcade, Atari Super System. You may like the Super System better. It has some of the best arcade and sports games. It even does something no arcade game can.
Telephone! It's Judy!
It lets you freeze the action.
Hello, Judy.
The new 5200 Super System.
If your dealer's sold out, keep trying. We're making them as fast as we can.
Anyway, we had some feedback commenting that we talked a lot about the 5200 controller, and that is true. And the reason is many reviewers have done a great injustice to the console by blowing out of proportion the issues with the 5200 controllers, not emphasizing the alternative controllers, i.e. Master Play Clone and the Wico 5200 command controllers. So we have a lot of damage control to do. For example, I looked up on YouTube 5200 console reviews and used a filter to select the most viewed videos, and this is what I got. And trust me, people, I even hate to give these people even credit, but yeah. I'll still give you the name so that you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, you got this guy called the Angry Video Game Nerd. And
I had the chance to meet him in Portland for the Retro Gaming Expo, and after what I read that you wrote here, I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. That video has close to 6 million views, and when you read the description, this is the description: the Atari 5200, infamous for its out-of-the-box faulty controllers. It doesn't take a genius to realize why it never caught on. Plagued with both the dawn of the video game crash of '83 and the lackluster quality hardware. The 5200 was quickly discontinued by 1984 and drifted off into obscurity behind the ever-popular 2600. Originally launched in late '82, the 5200 was the first console to feature the likes of a pause button. Yes, that's right. What we take for granted today was a real big thing back then, not to mention full analog controls, which for these type of games were perhaps a bit too excessive for the time. In this episode, the nerd gives his verdict as to why the 5200 failed, shows off the all-intuitive controller, and tries out the ginormous trak-ball accessory. He also gives his views on the confusing cartridge and power cable design. Give me a break.
What in the world is confusing
I've
about
seen
that? The box. I don't understand. What is so confusing about the power cable?
Well, with him, I followed his stuff for a long time, and he's funny. I mean, he does make some funny things, and you got to take all of his stuff with tongue in cheek.
Yes, absolutely.
But a lot of stuff he said there, just pandered to what a lot of people believe anyway. We talked about it again in earlier episodes. Not there's a lot of early episodes, but we talked about it the last episode. Was that Atari, people have to realize, the younger kids don't realize today what Atari was back then doesn't even exist today. They were an innovator. They were a starter. They were a company that were doing and trying things that were never done before, period. So when they were coming out of the 5200, they were trying to make things easier. I personally like having one cable coming out of the console to a box that's switched by itself with a power cord behind it. Kids today do not understand what we had to go through. Just reach it behind a stupid TV to switch it from TV to game. Your parents had these big, huge TVs inside furniture. It was a big pain. And having 4 controllers, jacks on the original 5200 anyway, was innovative. Analog joysticks, to be honest, yes, there were issues with them, but they were a million times better than the television trackpad that was horrible.
Glenn, pause you for just a moment because I want to touch on this, and you just mentioned it, and it was like a lightning bolt just hit me. Furniture. That's what the 5200 was always trying to do. You had, a television was part of your furniture. It sat on a table, part of your furniture, or it was furniture. The 5200, it was trying to be furniture. It was trying to look good in your home.
Well, that was the thing too. I mean, back then, there was a lot of money for these gaming systems, and bigger always meant you got more. That was just the mentality of people back then. Look at the TurboGrafx 16, the PC Engine. It was a cute little thing. They beasticized it to almost 3 times its size because in U.S., bigger was better.
Bigger was better.
But the controllers were actually put into the back of the unit, which, again, for aesthetics was nice. They were working on the 5200 Junior, which would have taken that part off and made it smaller. But I liked storing the controllers in there. But, having the pause button, the reset button, select button on the controller, it was a very advanced controller. The engineers didn't want to release it the way it was. They wanted to fix a couple things, but again, it was good old Warner saying, nope, push it out there. That's what they want. And, it caused problems, but it is nowhere near as bad, although it's funny, as the way the Angry Video Game Nerd had depicted it.
Yeah. And here's another thing. With the 5200, if you say that the controllers were the ultimate downfall of that, it wasn't. It actually was Jack Tramiel who basically came in, bought Atari, said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to split Atari in half. There's going to be Atari Inc. and Atari Games. Atari Games went on to be the arcade division of the company, and then everything else just kind of fell by the wayside, which is kind of sad because talk about innovation. Atari had the most advanced hologram laboratory on the planet. They were doing stuff that nobody else could even imagine. So again, this is kind of going back to the founders of Atari saying, this is a technology company that makes games, or we sell games to develop the technology. It was Jack Tramiel who came in and said, okay, it's computers. That's the future. And it's like, well, what about the game machines? That's what's making the money around here. He's like, no more games. It's all computers. And just because of that thing going down, that was really one of the biggest reasons why Atari did have its downfall.
Right. That and you hit that on the head too. Another thing was that Atari, if I'm not mistaken, was the first, if not one of the first companies to reach $1 billion as far as the company went. And they were investing technology all over. And you mentioned holograms. Atari had bought tons and tons of patents on holograms, and they were working on multiple projects. One was called the Cosmos, which was a handheld hologram game system, almost like the Game Boy is today. Right. It was simpler. It was just an LED matrix, and you put a hologram in as an overlay, like asteroids and stuff like that. And it was all set for production. It was literally, they had boxes of them ready to go, and then they canceled the project. Atari was famous for spending all this money on really innovative things, and they would cancel it. And, of course, when Jack Tramiel came in, that's what he did. He left Commodore. He was a computer guy. He went to make computers. He wanted nothing to do with the games. Unfortunately, in the U.S., we were in the midst of the crash at that point. Of course, the rest of the world was not. It was just in the U.S. The gaming system was still selling fine everywhere else, but he killed it. And then when Nintendo came in, he changed his mind, but it was too late. The 7800, if it was released back in 83, would have been a phenomenal system. It would have advanced like everything else. releasing that system in '86 after Nintendo, with Pole Position and Dig Dug and Miss Pac-Man, those things were over 4 or 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
So Jack Tramiel was not the best. He kept Atari going for a while, but overall, he killed the company, in my opinion.
Well, it wasn't the same Atari. It wasn't the same Atari.
No, it wasn't the same Atari. And one of the things that I've actually done quite a bit of reading on this, he just had this old school way of doing things, and he was, in some ways, he was. I'm going to say he was very frugal. Atari just didn't make ads anymore for television. Jack thought, hey, we can just do newspapers. Newspapers, it's inexpensive, and it gets out there. Well, we were already in our transition from getting our information from newspapers primarily to television, and it was an old school way of thinking, and he couldn't adapt to how the world was changing and how we got our information.
Sorry, guys, that might be me. One of my millions of things on eBay I'm looking at.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I think you're the cause of the static, Glenn.
We have found the source.
Because that static seemed to increase as soon as your beeper there, your phone was buzzing. Okay, so let me just go through this really quick. Okay, number one, when I got this console back in '83, the controllers worked fine. I didn't have any faulty controllers. I have no memories for the time I owned the 5200 back then that the controllers were faulty. Number two, lackluster quality hardware. Give me a break. Over here on my desk over here, I have an Atari 5200 over 30 years old. Guess what? I was playing it today. Okay? Take that X-Lax box and pathetic PS4.
Remember, when making that comment, the 5200 was based on the 8-bit line. I mean, the chipset for the 5200 was in the 400, the 800, the 1200, the XL series, the XE game system. I mean, it went on forever. So saying that about the hardware is completely ludicrous.
Here's another thing. Why the 5200 failed. My understanding is the 5200 sold at least 2 million units. Is that not correct?
I believe that's right. And
how is that a failure?
It's not, and not only that, but they were on the eve of releasing a new controller that would have pretty much fixed the whole problem. But again, they shut the door on that right at the 11th hour, if you would.
And the trackball is not that big. Okay,
you know what?
But
I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to go in because I'm on the 79th floor of the Atari tower here in the Pacific Northwest. Which means I'm actually in my basement where it's nice and quiet. But right next door is my little workshop. Hold on. I'm going to get a tape measure because everybody says, this thing is massive. Oh, okay. Well, hold on.
Okay.
I'm going to get a tape measure. Okay. So talk amongst yourselves.
All right. While Bob gets his tape measure, let's go to the last point. Confusing cartridge and power cable design. I knew already where to put the cartridge. Guess what? Here's a cartridge. There's the slot. I didn't even have
I think what he meant was you can sometimes flip the cartridge around and maybe insert it the opposite direction. On some of those third-party games, you can actually do that. So, yeah, it could be kind of like, which way does it go?
Now, the power cable design, I may have, back in '83, I may have had to look at the instructions, but I did look at the instructions, and I was able to still hook it up as a 16-year-old. So
it doesn't take a large IQ to get it hooked up. It does not. But
and neither does it to be an YouTube sensation, apparently.
Well, his shtick, angry video game nerd, his shtick is just to try to make people just hilariously laugh at his anger and his he's just just trying to do this little shtick.
I will say that when the line to go see him was massive. There were thousands of people waiting to see him. So hey, you know what? It works for him and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. His older stuff was hilarious. His new stuff, not so much. But his older stuff, I'm not going to lie, it was funny.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I got the tape measure. You'll have to convert it over to metric when.
All hail the Imperial system. Go ahead.
There you go. Here we go. So this massive trackball controller, this monster, it is 11 inches wide. It is about 9. I'm just going to round it down a little bit because it's just a shade over 9 inches deep, and it is a massive 3.5 inches tall.
Wow.
In the back.
Oh,
that's how massive this thing is. It's horrible. Oh my God.
How did they ever fit that in a box?
I don't know. I got my box. I got it squirreled away somewhere here. So.
All right. Now let's go to the next video from our dear friend at the Classic Game Room. Okay, so his video had over 200,000 views, and in his comments he puts, "This is the last console that he would ever recommend. Again, terrible analog non-self-centering controller." Okay, then there's another Classic Game Room video on the refurbished Atari 5200 controller. I have one. I know Glen, I think he's done his own refurbished controllers.
That's right.
Bob,
Right.
you have a refurbished controller. This is what he says about the refurbished controller. The Atari 5200 refurb controller has been rebuilt with new rubber, electronics, buttons, and still sucks. Thank you. Regarded as one of the worst game controllers ever created. Yeah, right. Okay. Now...
Okay. Yeah. Pause.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I did with mine, and I did it myself. And it was, brand new rubber. The rubber grommet, the electronics, the buttons. I even went so far as to go with new cables, which was probably unnecessary. But I went with new cables as well. I don't know. I don't know what to say about this.
Well,
I think honestly that comes down to people when they use a Pac-Man. Or Space Invaders, or Miss Pac-Man, or Donkey Kong on the 5200, they're really just expecting an Atari 2600 style centering stick. There's a learning curve. There is. It's not a fault of the joystick. It's just a learning curve.
No.
Yeah.
And you know what? We will admit on this show, as we review games, if the Atari 5200 controller for that particular game is your best option. A lot of times it won't be. But we're going to be honest. We're going to say, is it Master Play better, or is the PC Bohoki PC to 5200 adapter better with a PC controller? We're going to tell you. We're here to tell you the truth.
We are here to have you have the most enjoyable experience with this machine that is possible. Yeah, it's going to cost a little bit to get equipment and everything else, but just save up your pennies. Don't break the bank on various things. But this is in a reasonable amount of investment, you can have an absolutely fantastic time playing this machine. But yeah, it's kind of like if you need a screwdriver, don't bring a hammer. Pac-Man, I'm going to admit that yes, and here's the dead horse getting beaten again. But Pac-Man should not be played with the native 5200 controllers. It is arcade quality if you have a Master Play and playing it with the digital controllers.
Real quick, look at Atari's earlier days when you had the 2600. What I liked about that system and back in the day was you had a joystick, you had a paddle, you had keyboard controllers, you had driver controllers. They actually would make a control, right, the trackball. They made controllers for the specific games. When they went to the 5200, obviously the Intellivision had come out and like, oh yeah, we could do better control than you. And they tried to make an all-in-one, and that was probably a mistake in retrospect. I would rather them come out with a digital stick, an analog stick, trackball, a paddle. Like, there was no reason to stop doing that. I mean, there was a little more cost involved. But when you went out to buy Indy 500 for the Atari, you got the driver controllers. Yep. Made it a fantastic game. You were playing Breakout, Super Breakout, Kaboom. The paddle's the way to go. I mean, I made one for David. We're going to try and make some more. I'm just waiting on some parts to get here. But it's phenomenally different playing with a paddle. You can still play with the analog stick, but it's not the same. Like, and the Atari Flashback, as Bob and David know, that you try to play the Breakout game included or try playing Kaboom off the SD card, it's impossible with the joystick. You need a paddle. You got to make a controller for that game.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, and we'll get to this a little bit in just a little bit when we talk about Missile Command. I was playing Missile Command both with the analog, I'm sorry, not the analog, with the native 5200 controller and the trackball. And I'm going to tell you right now that it's a far more enjoyable, more competitive experience when you play with the trackball than you do with the joystick.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I played in the arcade, and that trackball is just so awesome with that game. And yeah, when I first got my 5200, and that was probably in the 90s, I really was just using the joystick, and I was like, yeah, it's an all right experience. But as soon as I got that trackball, oh my gosh, what an amazing experience that was. So much better than any other console. And yeah, definitely amazing.
And just so people know, the 5200 original version of Missile Command only uses the one center stack for shooting missiles. But there is a homebrew for the 2600 and the 5200 where you can have 3 missile stacks and get the real experience. But for that, you need like an Atari Max cart, which of course I have. But you could do that, and it becomes even better experience.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing I want to talk about that, I didn't know that there was one for the 5200. I knew that the 2600 had one, and there was, and I think Willie from the previous podcast, he actually, I think he made a special trackball controller so he could play the three missile silo version on his Atari 800.
Right. Right.
And that was really cool. So I think Rudy, we might have to put you on the job of modifying one of the trackball controllers to get the 3 buttons on it. And
I'm up to that challenge.
If we can drag Rudy out of the lab stop fooling around with those ColecoVision products.
That's right.
And start spending on some time on the 5200 products, maybe we'll get something done. But I just want to say to the listeners, we're going to tell you as we review the games. We will tell you if the stock controller is your best alternative, and if it's not, we're going to tell you too. So even though we love the 5200, we're still going to be objective. We're still going to let you know what's the best controller for the game.
Right, and you get an honest review. Was the game even fun? How fun it was? Was something could be improved on the game? We're not going to pull punches.
All right. So anyways, the second video game generation recap, they covered the Atari 5200. It's by a group called Figure It Out Productions, and I'm usually a nice guy. This video was absolutely poorly executed, and there was zero research done whatsoever. I mean, this is one of the things they have to figure out how to read the instructions. He did get a couple of things right on this video. It's based off of the 400 home computer and something else, but I don't have the strength. I forgot I just didn't have the strength to watch it again. I put down here, I said, I don't think I could survive the avalanche of complete misinformation. This was so obvious that there was no research done, no prep, no anything. He spent $30 acquiring hardware for the filming, then took the information that he heard from some guy down the street and just regurgitated it back. I was really, I was embarrassed and disappointed for this guy, because anybody who can just, there's this little thing called Google, there's Atari Age, there's all these places where you can actually, look things up. And he didn't. He just simply didn't. Part of me wants to play the millennial card on this for the disdain of old consoles. It's a cheap and easy shot. I don't think that's really the case going here. And in fact, the people I work with at the airline, we start talking about this stuff, and they're actually intrigued by this stuff because they could see how it's almost like this is the evolution of how video games got to where they are today, and because it is. Can we put this on the show? Because in the end, what we have here is the equivalent. Well, we can bleep this out, can't we?
Well, a jackass is a donkey.
Yeah, and that's exactly.
I think it's all right.
And that's what it really just kind of came across as. It was a jackass eating thistles with an audience. The audience was being cheated and misinformed. I would like. Part of me wants to have the guy on the show just to defend his case, but yeah, I'm afraid he won't even matter because he hasn't even played the games, and he admitted to it on the video. And yeah, it's just like, I got this thing, and he just whines about it. I'm like, where's this going? It's like you've done nothing. You've done nothing. The guy was lazier than me, and that's saying something.
How many views did this video have, by the way?
About 10,000.
About 10,000. So now, sadly, there's now just a little over 10,000 misinformed people out there, and here's my defense. I had the original old controllers. If you hear something in the background, I think it's my washing machine.
Not your family.
Not my family. No,
your family this time.
Yeah. We are not in front of a live audience for once.
Okay.
So, but I had my original controllers. They were the original carbon button machines. They worked all the time. I took care of my stuff. I mean, it wasn't like I was doing anything extraordinary. They worked fine after I brought them out. After 20 years, I plugged them in. They worked. So there you go.
Well, the one thing I want to say about the video is first, he made it sound like nobody's interested in the 5200. They're giving them away for free. The games are the games practically cost nothing. Excuse me. You got Bounty Bob Strikes Back. I think that game is over $500. That game right there. Yeah. Okay, you want to buy a complete copy of Robotron. That thing can be 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks depending on your luck. But he just made it sound like there's no following, nobody's interested, the games are practically worthless, nobody cares. There you go. And that's why when I watched that video, I was so sorry that possibly he earned maybe 2 cents from that view.
Yeah, I want my 2 cents back.
I want my 2 cents back.
Okay.
No. Yeah, it was really infuriating to watch that. David, Glenn, and Stephen, here's the thing. We do our research. We read up on this, and we wouldn't be on this show right now if we didn't love this machine. There's value to this machine. And then when you see somebody who, now, if he could make some valid points, I would go, okay, the guy's making some valid points. He didn't play the games. It's like,
I know.
This. It's a prop, and I didn't play it. And I'm like, dude, please.
Well, on to bigger and better things with our first game review. Take it away, Bob.
Here we go. The first game review we're doing is Missile Command. The publisher was Atari, and the year was 1982. And I was 11 years old. What a deal. The model number is CX5202. So this is basically the second game that they came out with for this machine. It's basically a shoot 'em up game, and it is developed by the ever amazing Rob Zedebel from Atari. And yes, I can go back and talk about how I almost played Defender with Rob Zedebel, but oh well. That's for other times. So anyways, the basic description is the planet is under attack. Defend your cities from incoming enemy missiles by launching your own to destroy them, but beware, there's more than missiles that you will have to defend against. So I'm going to go into a little bit of the history. I did cover some of this history in the previous Super System podcast with RK and Willie. But we're going to touch on it one more time because we want consistency through the product. So anyways, developing Missile Command, it was created by Atari programming guru David Thoyer. I believe I'm pronouncing that correct. The idea for the game came from the team leader, Steve Calfee, who approached Dave with an idea to make a game where the U.S. was being invaded by the USSR. And you had to kill the enemies on a radar screen. Knowing that the Cold War was a hot topic at the time, and any of us children of the 80s remember that it was basically this overarching thing that just shadowed everything that we did at any given time, it could easily be, we could take the Cold War and turn it into a fun game. So Dave was really excited to take the challenge, but ditched the radar screen because he thought it would be too distracting. So here are some neat facts about the development of Missile Command. Missile Command was originally called Armageddon. But those at Atari thought the name was too difficult for people to spell it, so it was renamed to Missile Command before release. The original concept for the marquee at the top of the arcade was a very large status-like panel, but it was replaced with a slim marquee before release because playtesters often thought they were getting distracted by it. This is kind of a fun little fact. The 6 cities were originally meant to represent 6 cities in California. They were Eureka, San Francisco, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, and San Diego. And then what's interesting is, I think it's kind of interesting. While programming this, David Thoyer suffered from frequent nightmares of cities being destroyed by a nuclear blast. So this was kind of one of those haunting things for it. So the Atari 5200 port was done by the great, like I said, Rob Zadibble. And remember, if you have an opportunity to play a game with a stranger, or someone you don't know, do it. You'll either make a friend or meet someone absolutely incredible, like I did with Rob Zadibble. I should have played, but it was nice talking with him though. Here we go. We do the graphics, sound and music, gameplay, and presentation. So, and these are all out of 10. Graphics, 8 out of the 10. I took 2 points off since it took 2 bases away, and the background colors changed. That is kind of an annoying thing as you progress through the game, that the background colors do change, and on some of them it can be fairly distracting. The sound and music, I'm going to give it 10 out of 10. It's almost a perfect port of the arcade. Gameplay, again, I'm going to go really high on this. 9 out of 10. I'm giving it a point off from the missing bases, but other than that, you put a trackball on this thing, and the arcade comes home to you. And then presentation. This is kind of a tough one for me. I went ahead and made it 7 out of 10. It's the standard 5200 packaging, and it has better than average artwork on it. It's kind of funny because it says, you're supposed to be protecting your planet from a alien missile attack. Yet if you look at the artwork on Missile Command, everybody is clearly wearing U.S. naval uniforms. So yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. So here's a controller tip. You absolutely have to get the trackball controller. This thing was made to have a trackball controller. It plays with a trackball controller. It's absolutely wonderful. If you ever want any more information about the trackball controller, the Atari 5200 Super Podcast, we had Dan Kramer on. He is a lovely man, absolute, one of these self-made geniuses, if you could, if you can imagine that. He's an all-around great guy and is still active in the Atari community today. In fact, he's a regular at Atari Party down in Davis, California. So definitely tune into that if you want to get more information on it.
I got to just jump in here real quick.
Yeah, please do.
Regarding Missile Command, my latest episode of Wired Up Retro kind of featured that game, and I was actually playing and showing some of the different systems that have Missile Command on them. And I showed a Genesis version, which was an Arcade Classics cartridge that had both Missile Command and Centipede on it. And the Genesis graphics, they're close to being on par with the 5200. Honestly, I think the 5200 looks a little better than the Genesis version of all things. And obviously it looks better than 2600. I like how at the very end it says the end. For the
right.
Yeah, and you don't get that with the 2600 at all. And I think you do get it with the Genesis, but yeah, nevertheless, 5200 with that trackball, you just can't beat it. And at the Genesis, you can use the Sega Sports Pad, which is made for the Master System, but it's just going to be a digital controller, just like on the 2600. Right. How the trackball made by Atari is really digital. That is, unless you get the homebrew or the revamped version, which is obviously analog. But nevertheless, 5200 version, just top notch. Love it.
Got it. Yeah, it's and really touching on it. On what you just said, this is a classic video game, and this is really the legacy of this video game. It's still considered one of the best video games of all time.
It's definitely one of my favorites still.
It's, this game, along with a few others, there's probably about 10 video games that basically changed the world. This is one of them. It ushered in the golden age of video games, if you ask me.
I agree.
Yeah, the original arcade game had 3 missile bases, which required 3 separate fire buttons, but to make it simpler, 2 of the bases were removed. There are playable versions, like we talked about earlier, online that are downloadable that restore the 3 bases. And there are ways to modify trackball controllers to have 3 fire buttons. And this version is for the 8-bit line that I know, and I think this would be a good time for Glenn to possibly look into doing the mod on it. And Atari Jaguar had a Missile Command 3D as well. So many ports for this thing, and I'll get to that here in just a little bit. Where to buy this?
Real quick, the Jaguar version, when it first came out, it's a shame, was originally designed for the Jaguar VR helmet.
Oh,
it had head tracking and an LCD display, and they demonstrated it a couple of times. And of course, Atari kind of was folding at that point and never came to fruition. They did release the cartridge. You could still play without the VR headset, but I think 2 VR headsets are in existence in a private collector, and it works. It looks pretty cool, but it's a shame we never got to play with the VR helmet for us to enjoy.
Maybe someday we'll have Android emulators where we can stick it in our VR headsets with our phone and enjoy it. That would be amazing.
Absolutely agree.
Awesome.
Well, I just wondered if you could just confirm to the listeners, Steve, that when we talk about analog control, like the Atari 5200 trackball analog control, and when we talk about the Atari digital trackball, my understanding is no matter how fast you move the trackball on a digital controller, the cursor always moves at the same speed.
Yes, however, that's true, and that is actually true on that Genesis version as well, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want people to know, when we talk about the analog controller, especially the analog trackball controller for the 5200, it allows you to go as slow or as fast as you need
lightning
to go.
Fast. Yeah, lightning. And I even I've noticed on the ColecoVision roller controller, it does have analog action, even when it's set to joystick mode and as opposed to roller controller mode. But the thing is, when you roll it fast, it's kind of limited in how fast it gets the cursor going on whatever game you're playing. Let's say Centipede. The 5200, Dan Kramer did just a stellar job, and that thing is very much proportional to how fast you move that ball.
Yep. And we hope to have him one day on the show.
You know what?
Let's bring him on.
See if I can get his contact information and bring him back on. I'd love to have him. He's just an all-around great guy. I mean, we could be talking about football with him, and he'd probably be entertaining. So, anyways, I mean, so now that you know that Missile Command is one of the greatest video games of all time, where can you buy this? Well, Best Electronics they still have them. I think last I saw, they were about $15. Brand new, and then loose about $10. I'm unfamiliar with B&C Computer Visions, but apparently they have it for $5 loose, which is pretty good. eBay, you can spend all over the place. I think you can get them brand new from a guy in Venezuela for like $6 and loose $3.60. Now, David, I wanted to ask you about this. You've ordered stuff from this guy in Venezuela. Is it good stuff?
Well, first thing, there's more than one seller from Venezuela. Okay. And everything that I've purchased is as advertised. They were all brand new in box.
Wow. Okay.
Now, I will tell you one thing. I did end up buying Space Dungeon brand new complete. And somehow I won it for, I think, less than $12. Okay?
Oh, wow.
Now, unfortunately, Customs was a little bit too enthused and brutal and ended up cutting the top of it with a box cutter knife. But the seller still gave me a refund for it.
Oh, wow.
Okay? But what I did was I just took other cardboard kind of paper and just reinforced where it was damaged, so it's still at least in one piece. It's a shame, really, because, to have a nice, brand new, complete Space Dungeon, it is a shame that it had to get hacked up by Customs, but still, he stood by the product. He refunded me. So I can't say if that's the same Venezuela dealer right now that's selling the one for $6. But so far, I've bought from multiple Venezuelan dealers and haven't had any issues.
Okay, cool. Because I'm looking at getting a VCS adapter for my 5200. So I will go. I will definitely consider that. So. All right, and then also, if you want to pick this up, your local retro gaming store, there are plenty of these cartridges around, so you can get in on the good times for fairly inexpensive and probably really close to home. Here are some other ports and reviews on it. I basically gave it. I matched up exactly with Atari Mania, 8.5 out of 10 on Atari Mania. The Video Game Critic gives it a B-. The readers give it an A-. Atari Times gave it a 67%. I don't know why that would be so low, but Cafe Man's 5200 page calls it a great game and a great conversion. Tomorrow's Heroes, their site gives it a B+. And the different ports and everything, this is coming back to what Glenn was saying. Or was it Steve? But either one, guy. This thing has been ported to pretty much everything that's out there. I even have it on my iPhone, and it's in 2 different apps. Isn't it on the Atari Flashback Portable for the 2600? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So you can play this thing.
But even if it wasn't, you can load it on an SD card, and you can load the hack if you want to do that, because you have the buttons. So
yeah, that would be really cool to do the hack for the portable. So anyways, that's pretty much it for Missile Command. I really enjoyed playing this. In fact, as we've been speaking, every once in a while I start playing it again. The satellites and the airplanes that come flashing through are fun because you never know if they're going to drop more missiles out of them or not. It's just a blast of a game, and if you want to practice on the little killer satellites or the smart bombs, I think that's what they're called. There's a game setting where you can just practice blowing smart bombs up and to build up your accuracy and everything. It's a great game. That's all. Let
me just throw one more thing in here.
Yeah,
that Atari Times giving it 67%. I'm figuring a lot of those people were playing it without a roller without a trackball, and I even have an emulator on my Xbox that plays 5200 games, and I have found a way to plug PC USB controllers into my original Xbox and actually play my 5200 trackball games with a PC trackball. It works great. So
that is really cool.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I can get it to work with Android emulators as well. So I may be doing a video in the next, I don't know if it'll be the next episode or 2 episodes from now, but it's going to come pretty soon. So we'll see what I can do. Yeah, you need that trackball, that's for sure. If you're going to give it a good rating, it's because you used it with the trackball.
Yep, absolutely.
If you think ColecoVision plays all Atari cartridges...
You mean it can't?
Here's Pac-Man on ColecoVision. But here's Pac-Man on the Atari 5200 Super System.
Now you're talking.
And it doesn't work on ColecoVision.
But won't Jungle Hunt?
Not with real arcade graphics.
Ms. Pac-Man?
This Ms. plays only on the Atari 5200 Super System. And now there's an adapter.
For 2600 games?
Nearly 300 2600 games.
Super!
System, now with a $30 rebate and Pac-Man from Atari.
Hey, show him Pac-Man!
Here.
Where? In there!
Now Pac-Man comes with it.
Hey!
Okay, so our second game we're going to review today is Pac-Man for the Atari 5200. The publisher was Atari Inc. Came out in 1982. Model number is CX5208. Its genre is Maze. The developer was Namco Limited. Let's give a little bit of history. Pac-Man is an arcade game created by Toru Iwatani, developed by Namco and licensed for distribution in the United States by Midway. First released in Japan in 1980, Pac-Man is considered one of the classics and virtually synonymous with video games, an icon of the 1980s. It generated a lot of spin-offs, merchandise, animated television series, including top 10 single, Pac-Man Fever. At the time Pac-Man was released, the most popular arcade games were space shooters like Space Invaders and Asteroids, both 2 games I love. Pac-Man created a new genre that appealed to both men and women. The characters also appeared in many officially licensed game spin-offs, as well as numerous unauthorized clones. For example, Casey Munchkin. Pac-Man is one of the longest-running video game franchises from the golden age of video arcade games, and one of only 3 video games that are on display in the Smithsonian, along with Pong and Dragon's Lair. Okay, let's talk briefly about the gameplay. Pac-Man fundamentals. The player guides Pac-Man up, down, left, right, through a maze filled with dots to gobble up. 4 ghosts are also in the maze and chase after Pac-Man, trying to corner and kill him. The goal is to clear the maze of dots while avoiding deadly ghosts. Each round starts with the ghosts in the monster pen at the center of the maze, emerging from it to join in the chase. If Pac-Man is captured by a ghost, a life is lost. The ghosts are returned to their pen, and a new Pac-Man is placed at the starting position before play continues. When a maze is cleared of all dots, the board is reset. A new round begins. If Pac-Man gets caught by a ghost and there's no more extra lives, the game is over. To increase your score each round, when Pac-Man eats one of the 4 Energizer dots located in the corners of the maze, the ghosts reverse their direction and in early levels turn the same shade of blue for a short period of time before returning to normal. While blue, they can be gobbled up for extra points. After being eaten, a ghost's eyes will return to the monster pen, where it is resurrected, exiting once again to chase Pac-Man. The first ghost eaten is worth 200 points. Each additional ghost captured from the same Energizer will be worth twice as many points as the one before it. For example, 400, 800, 1600. Pac-Man can increase his high score by eating the bonus symbols or fruit that appear directly below the monster pen twice each round for additional points. Okay, so let's take a look at the box. It's a typical silver and blue accented 5200 box. The front cover has an illustration depicting Pac-Man eating dots while being chased by 2 ghosts. The back of the box has screenshot along with the game description. Now here's your chance to really excel in arcade-like fun. Pac-Man is so much fun as the original arcade game. Chase the ghosts, eat the dots, and go for the tasty fruit bonuses. Master the maze to earn the key and a whopping 5,000 points. 8 skill levels, bonus fruit, game intermissions, 1 or 2 players. Okay, now each ghost has its own name. You might know them by Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. And each one has its own behaviors. The game comes with 2 overlays, and the game manual indicates if you press the asterisk button, you can choose between 1 or 2 player. And if you press the hashtag button, it will choose the game difficulty level you wish to play. You can play Pac-Man on the easiest level, Cherry, or the most difficult level, Key, or anything between. Regardless of the level you start with the game becomes increasingly more difficult with each new maze. If you don't make a selection, the program automatically sets at the Cherry level. Controlling Pac-Man. Use the joystick to maneuver Pac-Man up, down, right, left around the maze. Use the joystick to slide Pac-Man in and out of the openings on either side of the maze. If Pac-Man exits on the right, he re-enters on the left. If he exits on the left, he re-enters on the right. But beware, the ghost can travel these routes too. Game levels. You can start playing Pac-Man at any one of 8 game levels. Cherry, Strawberry, Orange, Apple, Melon, Atari Logo, Bell, or Key. Regardless of the game level you start with, you will automatically go to the next level after Pac-Man eats all the dots on the maze. All the levels can be played by 1 or 2 players. The Cherries level is a good choice for beginning Pac-Man players. In this game, the ghosts move slowly and stay blue for a longer time. At certain points between game levels, Pac-Man provides a halftime cartoon entertainment. We won't tell you exactly when the cartoons appear, but we will tell you to relax and enjoy the show. Scoring, we won't go through all the scoring, but the dot is worth about 10 points, energy pills about 50. The fruit goes from 100 all the way to the key, which is 5,000. And again, the ghosts if you devour all 4 in succession, 200, 400, 800, and 1600 points. So the manual, it gave us some survival tactics. So novice Pac-Man players should practice eating all the dots to clear the maze before trying to eat ghosts. Stay close to the energy pill, which should be called Energizer, before you eat it. And tease the ghosts into moving toward you. When the ghosts get close, eat the Energizer pill and gobble up as many of them as you can. Use the side openings of the maze like escape tunnels. Move to each side while quickly evading the ghosts. Use strategy and try to save up your energy pills until you absolutely need them. When you're in a hurry, travel a route already cleared of dots. You move 20% faster if there's no dots in your path. Look for patterns in the maze. When you find one that works, memorize it. So what do I give this awesome game? Well, I can just tell you, when I was a kid and I got my 5200 for the first time, it did come in with Pac-Man, and I played that Pac-Man for hours and hours. Even with the original controller, I loved that game, and it felt like Pac-Man to me. But anyway, I'm going to give graphics a 7. Nice looking game, even though the ghosts are missing their eyeballs, and the screen is stretched way too horizontally. Inky is also the wrong color. He should be blue, not green. For sound and music, I'm going to give it a 7. Very good music and sound effects. A bit too tad slow when compared to the arcade or Pac-Man arcade games. Gameplay, I'm giving it an 8. Lots of fun, good joystick control, and for the most part, but sometimes I swear I missed that turn I intended to make. I'm going to blame it on the controller. Presentation. The manual has nice cover art. Instructions are well done. They're interesting and colorful. It includes survival tips and a place to rate your high score. The box has the same cover art in the front, screenshot in the back. Overall, it gets a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Now, controller tip. This is best played with a Master Play or Master Play clone using either an Atari joystick or the Genesis gamepad, followed up by the Bohoki PC to 5200 adapter with your favorite digital PC controller, and lastly the Wico 5200 or the original game controller.
And I'll just throw in here, I've tried it with a PlayStation 3 controller, and I kind of agree with you about once in a while you're trying to make a turn and you're missing it. So not sure if there might be a hint of lag with that daisy-chained adapter setup I have, but I think I'm blaming it more on Pac-Man than the daisy-chain.
Well, when it comes to my playing ability, I'll blame it on myself. I'll give the controller a break this time.
I'm actually, as you guys are speaking, I'm actually playing Pac-Man. Now, my knowledge of these controllers, I can kind of compensate and come up with a somewhat of a technique where I kind of roll it around the corners and everything else, and I'm being fairly successful here. But yeah, this is one of the reasons why you get a Master Play and a nice digital controller, either just the original CX40, or if you want to upgrade it to something else. It's a far more enjoyable game, and it does again bring the arcade experience at home if you have a digital controller.
Yeah, I like using the Competition Pro with it. But I agree with both you guys, whereas the arcade machine seemed a little more intuitive when you moved up, down, left, and right. It seemed to always flow in the direction you wanted it to go.
Yeah.
Well, this one seemed like there's almost like a microsecond lag. You have to do it almost right before to get it to go. It's still fun, but it's not quite the same.
Yep.
And another thing, which is not 5200 related, but just Pac-Man related, the ghosts weren't originally ghosts. They were originally monsters, and it's somewhere along the line someone started calling them ghosts, and that's stuck. But the original were monsters. If you notice in the Pac-Man, the intermission scenes, there's a nail on the ground, and he rips his pants, and you see his leg.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They were originally monsters. They weren't ghosts. I don't know where that changed, but that's what stayed with them, and they called them ghosts from now on.
Well, I'll put it to you this way.
I was going to say, I just made it to one of the intermissions here. Oh, there we go. Wow, I did it. Wow.
Yahoo.
With the native controllers. Hey.
There you go, man.
I'll put it to you this way. You can play this game very well with the original controllers. But if you were to compare how well you do with the analog controller versus a digital controller, I still think with the analog controller, even no matter how good you get at it, you're still playing with a handicap.
Yeah,
I think this is a digital game. There's only 4 directions, and really, the digital controller is the way to go with this game.
I totally agree.
Okay. So other reviews. Atari Mania gives it 5.7 out of 10 based on 40 reviews. 2003 Video Game Critic gave it an A-. Pac-Man not only passes the test of time, it actually improves with age. I swear I have more fun playing this now than I did 20 years ago. Boy, I can't wait for another 20 years to pass. Then it will really be awesome. Seriously, though, this cartridge must have been a slice of heaven back in 1982. The maze, sound effects, gameplay are all nearly identical to the original arcade game, down to the intermissions. The gameplay is fast, noticeably faster than the arcade, which makes it more fun and challenging in my opinion. Blinky is particularly aggressive. The wobbly 5200 controllers might cause you to miss a turn at first, but they actually work well once you get a feel for them. Okay? With 8 difficulty levels, Pac-Man is always a good time. And Atari HQ gave it a 7, so I think that's 7 out of 10. Did you want to say something, Steve?
Oh, yeah. I just want to throw in here the Atari 2600 Pac-Man version was kind of a disappointment to a lot of people. And, when it came out, I was a kid. I was just like looking at it thinking, that doesn't even look remotely like what I saw at the arcade. And with the 5200, I was just just mesmerized at how close it was to the arcade, and the sound effects are just so spot on. It's really a nice experience, especially in comparison to what else was available at the time.
Right after the 200 version, the Atari 8-bit 5200 was a very good version. Atari Soft made good versions as well for the Texas Instruments and other systems. There was one version, actually by, again, you guys know I also have a Bally Astrocade. I know I cheat on my 5200 a lot. I'm sorry. But on the
Not
Bally
to mention Coleco.
Yeah, I know. I'll get that again. But the Bally Astrocade had a version called Muncher. And it was a very good version of Pac-Man, especially when you consider its hardware and time frame was around the 2600 time frame. And it's a very, very, if you ever see it, it's a very good port. Still, the 5200 looks nicer, but Pac-Man is just one of those games. Pac-Man, Missile Command, Asteroids, Galaga. There's just certain games that, whether it was 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, till today, the gameplay is still solid, and this is no different.
So what can be said about the legacy of Pac-Man, this game that's still alive today? Well, it spawned Miss Pac-Man. It spawned some unofficial games by Bally Midway, Baby Pac-Man, Professor Pac-Man, and Junior Pac-Man. Namco also came out with Pac-Man Plus, Super Pac-Man, Pac-Land, Pac-Mania, and countless other sequels and spin-offs. Most recently, there's a Pac-Man 256 for Apple iOS, Android, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, and the PC. It's based on the infamous kill screen, level 256, of the original 1980 arcade game. Where to buy? Best Electronics has this game for $10 loose cartridge only, and box for $15. B&C Computer Visions has Pac-Man cartridge loose for $5, and eBay also has loose carts for $5, and good old Venezuela, brand new copy for $9.
Nice.
You know what? I think we all got to get on a plane and head on to Venezuela.
Yeah, but then we're going to get cut open by customs. So then,
they do have little knives there.
Okay, we want to thank everybody for all the user feedback. It really is so nice to hear positive feedback. If we make mistakes, people let us know. Also, tell us what a great job we're doing. It creates a positive atmosphere and gives us what we need to keep this show going, because we really do want to make sure that we cover all 69 games before the podcast ends. I just want to thank listeners for their positive feedback on our intro. Bob and I are $6 Million Man fans, and we thought an epic system like the 5200 should have an epic theme, and the $6 Million Man theme is one of the most epic intros of all time. Now, with some other feedback, go ahead, Steve. What did we get?
Our first feedback comes from Tim Duarte. Actually, Tim and I go quite a ways back to the early 90s when he was involved with the 2600 connection. So, hi there, Tim.
Cool.
All right, so he writes, "Hi, David and Captain Bob. I want to write you and tell you I enjoyed your second episode of the Atari 5200 podcast. I'm not an owner of a 5200, but I do own an Atari 400 and an Atari 800, and I have many of the games that were dumped from 5200 cartridges and converted to play on the Atari 8-bit computers. I'm still a fan. I'm a huge fan of Wizard of War. When I saw that you were reviewing this game, I just had to listen. In fact, I just contributed to a podcast about the Bally Astrocade called the Astrocast. The website is Bally Alley Astrocast. You can just type that into Google. Bally is spelled B-A-L-L-Y. Alley is A-L-L-E-Y. And then Astrocast is one word, A-S-T-R-O-C-A-S-T. I contributed a comparison of the Bally Astrocast version of the Incredible Wizard and the coin-operated version of Wizard of War. It was a lot of fun. I also made a PDF article of it. You can read it at the2600connection.com. I hope you will give it a read. I look forward to hearing future episodes of your podcast. I hope you will review Kaboom, Megamania, and Keystone Capers, and Zenji soon. I love the Activision games and would like to know what the differences are among the 5200 and Atari 8-bit cartridges. I imagine they have to share a lot of the same code. Thanks, Tim Duarte.
Okay, thanks a lot, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've actually read into what the differences is, because the 5200, as we all know, is basically an Atari 400 without the keyboard. Apparently, it's in the it's somewhere in the registries for the games where it reads the input coming from the controllers and how it is, how that interacts with the game itself. So I think it's just there's a gentleman. I'll do my research, but I think there's a gentleman who actually does that, where he takes 8-bit games, converts them over to 5200, and vice versa, just by basically changing the registers and making things work. The other kicker is that you have to the 800 and 400 were digital controllers. The Atari 5200 is analog controllers. So there's a little bit of wizardry that happens with that. But other than that, they're virtually the same. They speak the same language. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as mentioned in episode 2, we are having our first contest/giveaway. The winner of the contest will win a copy of Tempest, published by Atari Age. The cartridge will come with a custom box. Here's what you have to do to enter the contest. You must send an email submission to the Atari 5200 podcast at gmail.com, explaining why the Atari 5200 was the superior console of its day.
We want to make sure that the listeners who are new to the podcast get an opportunity to enter the contest. So in episode 4, we will give you the cutoff date for submissions, and on episode 5, we will announce the winner. We plan to give more giveaways in the future.
So with that, with the contest and everything else going on, we got a lot of stuff going on here at the podcast. Glenn, what are our next games that we're going to be reviewing here on the show?
This time I'm going to pick 2 games I really enjoyed as a kid. I lost a lot of quarters in one and a lot of time at home getting yelled at not doing my homework. We're going to do Gorf. I think David should do Gorf. And Bob, how about you do Star Raiders?
Sold. Oh, man. Do you guys know about my love of Star Raiders?
Who doesn't like Star Raiders? It's an amazing game.
I am going to tell you right now, I mean, I remember when we covered this on the previous podcast, I had tips and tricks and everything else. I think for this one, I'm depending on how much time I have, I might get the video hooked up and I might record me making one of my marathon runs on Star Raiders to see if I can get and show everybody what it looks like to get Star Commander Class 1.
Nice.
Oh,
nice. I've never hit that myself, so man, that'd be nice.
Well, I think I was Garbage Scout Captain all the time.
Yeah, the last video I shot a quick little video where I basically it was just the screen capture. I shouldn't say a screen capture, but I just filmed at the very end, and this was on at the previous podcast. But a video where, and I think it was like maybe 10 seconds long, where it's flashing through, and the best I was able to get, I did get Star Commander Class 2. But for some reason, I bumped the machine or something, and it reset, and I was like, oh. But I can consistently, if I give it a little bit of practice, I can consistently get Star Commander Class 4, no problem.
Sweet.
Awesome.
In my dreams.
And I attribute that video game to me being able to do what I do today, which is fly an airplane. So there you go.
You can find us online. On Facebook, search the Atari 5200 Podcast. On Atari Age forums, search the Atari 5200 Podcast New Podcast. Or you can go to the Atari 5200 Super Podcast libsyn.com/RSS. And of course, you can find me on YouTube. You can just search Glen Planamento. That's Planamento. But I'm sure you knew that already.
And you can find me, Steve Averitt, over at Wired Up Retro on YouTube. It's Wired Up with a hyphen in between the two words and then retro. So look forward to seeing you, and you can certainly comment on some of my videos. Greatly appreciate that.
I highly recommend both YouTube channels.
We both appreciate that.
Thank you so much, David.
Okay, you're very welcome. I will be honest, even though this may come off as biased, but, a lot of times, when I'm looking to watch stuff on YouTube, I find a lot of boring content. But I'm always happy to see when Glenn uploads an episode, or when you upload an episode, because at least I always know I'm going to get interesting content, I'm going to learn something, and you guys just make great videos, so I just want to throw that out there.
It's appreciated,
I'm having
David.
a lot of fun.
Okay.
So, guys, I just want to do a shout-out to Wade Tooley. He's from ScanlinesPDX.com, and he was actually one of the guys. I know he was kind enough to give me the Coleco handheld, and I know this is for the 5200, but it was just very nice for him to do, especially when we're talking before about other people in the community. So just Wade Tooley, thank you very much. And if you guys have a chance, do check out his website, ScanlinesPDX.com.
Very good, even though it was Coleco related.
Yep. I know. You guys will hit me after the show. I'll bend over and take my lickings.
No, I can't. You're the Rudy Wells. We can't live without you.
That's right. I got the bionic fixes. That's true.
That's true.
There you go. I'll do the next one.
Okay, go ahead.
We're also a part of the Retro Junkies Network, a network of like-minded retro enthusiasts who like to keep things clean and family-friendly. Our content ranges from retro gaming, retro movies, retro TV shows, retro music, and basically anything retro that is worth remembering. Find us at theretrojunkies.com.
We're a part of the Throwback Network, a group of podcasters with one thing in common. We all love old things, whether it's old video games, old movies, old toys, or simply old stories. The Throwback Network is a place to find them all. Visit throwbacknetwork.net to learn more.
Well, everybody, that's the end of the show. We want to thank so much again Steve Averitt for coming over again and being part of the show. He was great on the first episode, awesome on this episode. We'd love to have you back as many times as you're willing to come, Steve.
All right. Well, I do appreciate you asking me to come on. A great time here.
Yeah, Stephen, thank you so much, and looking forward to the next video.
And some of the great products he's working on, too.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And just in case, Dr. Rudy Wells is busy with Coleco all the time,
oh my God,
we can get another doctor to come in.
Well, anyway. you remember there was more than one Rudy Wells on $6 Million Man.
That's true.
Oh, that's right. I forgot all about that.
Well,
unfortunately, man, I'm getting replaced. I'm replaced already.
All right, then. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a great night.
Enjoy, everyone. Thanks for listening.
And thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program are those of the hosts and persons appearing on the program. and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of ColecoVision or Intellivision owners. The Atari 5200 podcast is not responsible if you should start liking the Atari 5200 console over its competition. At this time, the Atari 5200 podcast now concludes its podcast day and ceases recording. The Atari 5200 podcast is produced under the authority of Bob Benedetti and David Vucetic. Regular listening of this episode now continues on iTunes and other quality feeds.
Discover Atari. And discover how far you can go.
Welcome, listeners, to our third episode. The Atari 5200 is such an awesome console that it needs 3 hosts to discuss its virtues. So Bob Planamento and I would like to... What the heck?
Bob Planamento. I like that.
Okay.
That was our first one.
Yeah, there's our first. Of course, I'm the master of flubs. Here we go again. Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Well, now I'm screwing up. Oh, my God. Sorry, David.
Okay.
We're part of the Throwback Network, a group of podcasters.
A group?
With one...
Say that again?
Huh? Sure. We're part... Oh, God. Now I'm going to be like...
Like David, yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm blowing it. Hold on.
Yeah, in fact, Glenn, what are our... Yeah, I can't even speak.
Okay, hold on a second, guys. I try to do that so fast. Okay.
I'm sorry we're under the gun.
That's okay. I'll blame it on ColecoVision and television again. Okay, hold on.
Excellent.
Okay.
I just as a heads up, I do have dinner upstairs here pretty soon, so my time is the sand in my hourglass is probably less than everybody else's. So
the 5200 should be your sustenance.
Yeah.
What's going with these priorities? Food?
Yeah.
What? Food?
I have to eat.
Okay.
All right. Oh, static. Still there, guys?
Yeah,
that was my taco. I started at Taco Bell tonight.
Oh, okay.
I thought that sound was familiar.